Inside this building is a wonderful O-gauge train layout. It's the handiwork of Jim Bangert with a little help from his son Jake. Like so many people, Jim got started in this hobby a long time ago.
When I was a kid, my grandfather used to work for the L&N Railroad. That meant that he had to live just 2 houses away from the Howell train yards in Evansville, Indiana.
Jim's railroad is set in the hills of southern Indiana and northern Kentucky, with just a little of the wide open spaces of the West in spots. It's a railroad set up for good operation, and it all starts at the engine terminal.
Well, the layout starts out where anybody would start their day out, at the engine terminal, the turntable, and there's a large general store there that receives produce from the different trains. But you also have to consider that there's got to be time for a diner for the railroad people to eat. And if there's an old train station around somewhere, there ought to be a museum for those trains.
Jim prefers more modern steam power than this, but his use of this early 1900s Wild West train as a museum piece is a very unique idea.
I used a Lionel Rico station, painted it to my own colors, and then built up the parking lot, and just thought about different things that ought to be in a parking lot like that. A tour bus, people coming up, little kids like to see the horses. So many kids anymore don't get a chance to really have fun, and I like to portray the fact that there is ways to have fun in the world today. My model of the city is a pretty fair representation, although not exactly correct, of Franklin Street here in Evansville. I've got my doctor's office in there. I've got streets named for different people I know. I want a policeman on the corner somewhere, but I do like to see the kids running to the ice cream truck and playing on swings, and then there's the McDonald's and all the rest of that. And there was a neighbor that had a dog that, it was the nicest thing ever, but for some reason, I guess it just didn't like the color blue. And he'd get after that mailman every time he had a chance to. If you'll notice, Crazy Jake's classic cars, that's named for my son. He's been a large help to me on this train layout. However, the fellow standing outside right beside the building is a good friend of mine, Sean Gallagher, and Sean helped me build a lot of the bench work in the back there. I always tease him about he never met a car he couldn't sell.
Just a short ride out of this well-done city puts you into some pretty rugged country, with grades, tunnels, mountains, bridges, and curves. Most mountain railroads have a coal mine somewhere on the line, and this railroad is no exception. But this mine has a unique look to it because Jim has done a little freelance scratch building here.
The bottom piece there is a Lionel piece, and instead of making it a grain elevator, I just made it part of the coal operation. The other side is a Bachmann piece, but everything in the middle is scratch built. I just used bits and pieces of wood and painted it all black. And then I painted one side of the light bulbs that are shining down so that they don't glare straight at you. I try to run my light bulbs anywhere on the layout at maybe about 1/2 to 3/4 strength. That way they last longer. Matter of fact, I've got some light bulbs on the layout that are probably 15 years old and still haven't burned out.
Jim has done a little more scratch building here and there around the railroad.
The water tower was my first scratch building project, and I know it sounds funny to some people, but I don't care for super glue. So I scratch built it out of nuts and bolts, 0090 nuts and bolts, and I just drew on things that I had thought of as I saw my grandfather work on the railroad.
Jim has also tried his hand at scratch building a locomotive, and this is the result.
I started out with a basket case from Lionel. Poor engine had the front pilot broken off and the marker lights were broken off. There was no tender to go with it. A good old friend of mine that's passed away just about 2 years ago here helped me, taught me a lot about scratch building and coached me through rebuilding that. So we put the correct pilot on it and we put operating marker lights on it and did it upright. The tender's completely scratch built out of brass. I put all the handrails on and scratch built the frame and put the extra chains on it and the tools and the tool boxes down the sides. And then we painted it up with Scale Coat's Keystone Gray.
Jim has also used his scratch building skills to preserve a few very fond memories of his life.
I scratch built that. Actually, I started out with another manufacturer and repainted it and decaled it and everything, but it kind of presents the spirit of the layout. My grandfather, to me, just kind of walked on air. He'd come home every day. He always wore bib overalls and he always had a polka dot hat on. So I have him on another train and I'm riding the back of that B of L train. The sky I did exactly the way that everybody says not to. Everybody says that you're supposed to paint your sky first and then build your bench work. And I built the train layout. I did paint the blue first, but then I took a yardstick and screwed a paintbrush on the end of it and used acrylic colors to paint those clouds in.
When it comes to motive power, Jim is partial to Lionel, and for now all of his engines are Lionel's. He also uses the Lionel Trainmaster command system to run his trains. How does he like it?
It's been fantastic. When I first started out, I had a smaller one-room layout. This area right here was the entire train layout. And you could run it off of a ZW or whatever with no problems. But from here, you can't see most of the trackage. And with the command control, you can walk around beside it, adjust the speed, stop, start, switch, whatever you want to do. And I wouldn't think about building, especially a big layout, without it. I have two 135 Power Masters and one TPC 3000 on each main line. So there's a total of 4 there. Now I am thinking about upgrading my number 1 main line to run 3 135s and use the new TPC Platinum so I can get 400 watts of power. Because sometimes when I run long trains and put passenger trains with it, it's quite a power drain. The TPC unit has just almost made this thing foolproof. If you have a derailment, the circuit breaker is quick to kick out, protecting my electronics. I have not had any problems with electronic failure due to derailments or anything like that. I run a lot of other manufacturers' rolling stock, but for simplicity of operations, I don't like to get into too many control systems. I'm electrically inclined, but I could be considered electronically handicapped.
Jim has created a wonderful railroad atmosphere in his miniature world, and that even extends to the outside of the train room. This is a 1937 Model 5 auto flag, originally made by the Western Railroad Supply Company.
It has all of its original relays. I don't run the bell too much because it's only about 6 feet from my neighbor's bedroom window. The parts were all in dirty and everything. I had to have the whole thing sandblasted. It had to be completely disassembled and completely redone and put back together again.
Almost all the parts were there and restorable, except the target on the wigwag itself. It was beyond help. So Jim called Western Railroad Supply to see if they just might have a new one. When Jim told the salesperson what he had, the salesman said,
"You mean you've got an operating Model 5? He said, "I only know of a few of those in the country." And I said, "Man, I need a target for it, something fierce." I said, "Have you got any sort of parts, or do I need to try to make one out of some scratch material?" And he said, "Well, I think I've got one back in the back room that is brand new." I couldn't believe it. I said, "Brand new?" And he said, "Yeah, it's still in the box. We've been inventorying it now for 30, 40 years. And I said, "Well, what do you take for it?" I think I got it for like $40 or something like that. And brand new piece.
Jim has some good advice for those of you who might be thinking about getting into this hobby.
I think there's several reasons to give it a try. For one thing, just the fact of being able to get away from your regular job and express yourself apart from that. It's fun. It's a good way to network with other people. Start out small with something that you might understand, and as you go along, then you can add on and get bigger. But you don't even have to get bigger. You can join other groups, and for instance, if they're anywhere close to me, I accept people around all the time.
While the nuts and bolts of building a model railroad are interesting and fun to do, Jim's involvement in the hobby goes a little deeper than that.
It's something that pulls my family together. My wife goes to train shows with me. Usually when my wife goes to train shows with me, I can spend more money that way. And it's a family thing. I've taught my son how to hammer and screw and nail, and how to do electrical work, and how to think for himself. Plus, we've got a bond between each other that a lot of people would like to have. God's been awful good to me, awful good.
Me too.